been there since last week, and everyone seemed to be well happy and smiling. The gaining of the Kenyan dollar. And this morning we'll be giving you a whole explanation on why that really matters to you. Actually, does it matter to you? That's a question of the day for you. Do you think the shilling gain matters to you? Hashtag Biashara Tuesday. You can always talk to us. Weka credit sahi utupigie 0795045864. Kama uko na bundles pia on WhatsApp 0793267279. We'll be sampling your feedback as we continue this conversation. We'll be having it with two experts on matters economy. Dr. David Kabata, an economist, as well as has a PhD in matters business management, entrepreneurship, and innovation. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Good to have you once more. The last time you here, business class, tuki chambo some matters business and what matters to the common mwananchi. And later on we'll be joined by Stella Swakey, a senior research associate at the Standard Investment Bank, SIB, and also has an actuarial a degree on actuarial science from Dedan Kimathi. Will be joining us a little bit later on. And just to understand what this is. So, Dr. Even as we start, just to take a look at the recent figures of the shilling against the dollar. So, according to Central Bank of Kenya, right now, it's at 142.91. Equity, the buying at 140.3. Family Bank, 140.5. Stanbic Bank, as of yesterday, at around 9 a.m., was about 140. So we'll be getting to understand also why the variance of, from what CBK is telling us and even other commercial banks. But let's even start from there. What did you take, what is your opinion after, last week from the whole gain of the Kenyan shilling against the dollar?
So thank you, Stanley. I think I'm one of the people who were actually affected by the dollar because 2 weeks ago we bought a machine. At 166 exchange, an exchange rate of 166. And by last week, we had actually lost 30,000 from that machine. If it is a machine that we were supposed to sell here, it would have been very difficult for us because...
Oh, you had bought it from outside the country?
Yes, at 166. Okay. It actually came here with 166, exchange rate of 166 2 weeks ago. By last week, Friday, the dollar was at 140. So there was a huge difference of about 26 shillings, which if you multiply by the figure that we were paying, we were actually losing 30,000 within a week.
Wow.
Yes, so that is a problem of that fluctuation of the dollar. And that is why you see one of the most important goal or objective of the central bank is stabilization of the currency. Because without a stable currency, you have a problem. Yes, right. You have a big problem, and therefore, when you see some of those fluctuations, like the ones that we saw last week, it's a big challenge, especially to the importers, the people who are getting goods and services from outside. Basically, because you do not know where the market stands. And I'm happy at least we can see there is a stabilization at 140. If you look at the prices that we have yesterday and today, we have a stabilization, buying at 140, but in most cases, I don't think people understand that. The banks will buy at a very cheap price, 140, but sell at 149, 150, because they're actually making a lot of money through that.
But then now, even the past week, they've been selling it at less than 160. But I'm curious, because the big question Kenyans are asking is, now why now? And why are we now seeing the gain since last week? There has been, consecutively for quite a number of days, there has been that gain. Why are we seeing it now? And what actually, from the first day that it gained, why did it even gain?
I think if we have to look at the gain and the loss of the Kenya shilling to the dollar, we go back to the COVID time after COVID, what we call the post-COVID, and also we go back to the war of Ukraine and Russia. Because you see, what happens is that the dollar is a global currency. And being the global currency for trade, what usually happens is that when you have a problem of currency in the global arena, people will always look for the most stable currency to keep their wealth in it. And I think one of the most stable currency is the global currency for trade, which is the dollar. So what happened is that we had a situation where the demand for dollar increased because people are looking for ways in which they can be able to keep their wealth in a more stable currency, and therefore they bought more dollars after COVID, and also the opening of the economy after COVID. And that brought about the problem of demand and supply of dollars. And what usually happens is that when you have high demand for dollars, it eats all the other currencies. And that is why you have seen that even after stabilization, I don't think that dollar can, the shilling can go to 119 where it was, but it will stabilize between 130 and 140.
So where it is about now?
Yes,
but for how long? Because, I mean, right now, there's uncertainty between regular Kenyans as well as investors. They're wondering, those who have the dollar reserves, should they go and trade? Should they still, hold them for longer? They're wondering, how can we actually project and see for how long this gain and at it can it be?
I know in the last 2 weeks we have had some issues that have actually brought about whatever we have been seeing in the forex market, where the government actually issued a very, I call it romantic, infrastructure bond at 18% interest rate and tax-free. Many people would go for it, even the investors, because the government is giving you 18% free without tax. And I think we had an inflow of dollars, people trying to come and buy, the investors coming to buy that infrastructure board. We also had an issue of actually making a decision of how we are going to pay the Euro board, the Euro board loan, the 238 billion, I think, loan. You see, we have had a situation where there was no really way of showing whether the government would be able to pay. So when the government went to the market and actually looked for a loan to pay up the loan, although it took a loan at a higher price, which it was supposed to happen because of our credit rating, I think there was that confidence that now at least the market is not as bad as it was. And when you see some of these markets, they are actually, the biggest player in the market is the confidence, the perception people have on what is going to happen. If the investors have a negative perception about what is happening in the country, they run away because money doesn't want uncertainty. Money wants certainty. That is what we keep telling people. And therefore, with that, there was also an inflow of dollars. Because you see, I keep telling people that a dollar is a very funny currency, because you cannot. It is not like Kenya shillings. You're just going to run here in Delaru and print it. You earn a dollar, and there are very few ways of earning a dollar. One of them is export. But you can see our export is very poor in this country. The other one is remittance. When Kenyans who are living outside there are willing to bring dollars inside here through remittance, like what you have been seeing them doing. The other one is a loan. You get a loan in dollars that can be able to increase the reserves, your dollar reserves in the country. And maybe lastly is to reduce your imports so that you do not repatriate as much dollars as possible in the international market. So those are the only ways. So when you have an inflow of dollars, I think the question that we need to ask ourselves is, where did this inflow come from that actually pushed the dollar against the Kenya shillings to the level that we can see?
All right.
Yes.
So, I mean, because, before the gain, a number of Kenyans who had dollars were holding them until they actually see how things are going to be. How did that affect how the gain and also the loss was?
I still don't understand these Kenyans who are holding the dollars because that is the information that is some of the information that people are talking about. But that is what actually happens. When you see as if you are going to lose, if you had actually accumulated that dollar at 118 or 119 or even 125, and you see as if you are going to lose, you see human perception is that they should actually release as quickly as possible before they lose everything. And we still have people who actually released their dollars, especially the banks and also some of these institutions, because of that small uncertainty that was there. They were not quite sure what is going to happen tomorrow to the dollar. And you see, the political class are taking advantage of that and telling people that, you know, you are nyinyi mutaona, you wait and see. And you know, when you tell investors that they are going to lose, that perception alone can actually increase the inflow of the dollars in the economy by maybe those people releasing some of the dollars, the people who are actually speculating on them, because it's a big market actually. It's a good investment market, especially if you can be able to speculate it well. Right. Yes.
Before we cross over to our board here, I want now for an explainer for the Kenyans watching us to understand, because I mean we'd have for different commercial banks they'd quote different numbers, as I was quoting earlier. For example, Equity at 140, Family Bank at also 140.5, CBK at 142, Stanbic at, as yesterday, at 140. The different numbers. What comes? What do they look at when the variations are different?
You see, the central bank gives ranges of. It actually gives a range of where the dollar price should be, and actually it should be the central bank rate should be the main range actually, because one of the objectives of the central bank is to actually stabilize the foreign exchange. And I remember when I was in the banking industry, every morning the central bank would give us the values of the ranges where we should actually buy the dollars. But the most important for Kenyans, what they should do is to look for the bank that is selling, that is actually buying at a better rate. Because if you look at the banks, what the banks have been doing, and actually I keep saying that some of these banks have actually been playing a very bad game with the Forex, is that they have been buying from us Kenyans at a very cheap price, but selling at an exorbitant price. But it is because the central bank had not reined on that, because it also had an impact on the value of the currency.
So what's the better rate here? Is it the one that seems to be lower or higher?
When they are buying from you, you go for the higher rate because they are going to give you good money. But you see, the problem with these banks is that they buy at a very low rate, but they sell at a very high rate, meaning that you actually going to exchange that dollar at 140 in that bank, but if you want it back, they will sell it at 148. So it means that they have actually taken 8 shillings from your dollar. So the Kenyans should look for where they can be able to make money. That is what I keep telling them. And they should not be fixated to their banks, because the banks that they believe are the best for them. Right. Because for you is to make as much money as possible from your dollar.
So would you advise right now, if you're having, and even as we cross over, you'll be holding this. This will be your pen for the day as we cross over here. So will you advise someone, I want us to use a hypothetical there on the board, for someone who has $1,000, so they have $1,000 and they're wondering the whole uncertainty. So how should they be selling? Should they hold them for longer? You can help us now understand this, and also just remind you that Stella Chokei will be joining us also to give us more context on this conversation. Karibu Daktari.
Yes.
You give us you can cross over and give us. So that's hypothetical. So for example, you have $1,000 USDs right now as a Kenyan. First of all, how does that even help you? The $1,000
the 1,000 US dollars is very important, especially if you are a trader, because if you actually want to go and buy goods and services, if you had this money in what we call the dollar account, there are people who have dollar accounts. Dollar account is an account that you open that in most cases you put your money in dollars. And it is actually very important for people who are doing business because of this fluctuation of the currency. So if you have $1,000 in your dollar account, one of the things, and you want to exchange this money into the Kenyan, into Kenya shillings, one of the things that you need to do is to look for the best rate for yourself, because you want to make money from your dollar. So you go to all those banks and try to see which bank is going to give you the best rate in the market.
Right. So right now, and you can have this now, because equity for the buying is 140. So we can list a few of them and see which one, if I was having that, which one should I go for? So, right. I think we can just have a different color. All right, let's have the black. Can continue.
Yes, equity at 140.
So yeah, so you do have equity buying at 140.3, and Family Bank buying at 140.5, as well as the Stanbic Bank. So as of yesterday, 140.
140. So those are the values.
Yes.
You see now you have $1,000. Because you have $1,000, you look for the best rate, 140.5. Why are you throwing away your 0.50, your 0.5? Eh? Because it's also some money for you. So you multiply by that.
Okay.
So you will get the amount of money that you are going to get in Kenya shillings.
All right.
Like now this one will be about 140,500. So you can see it's 140,500 shillings. So this 500, why are you throwing it? And it is your money. And you see, the bank is also going to charge you some rate for the conversion. It can actually play a critical role in that. So that is why I'm saying, look for the best. Look for the best rate in the banks. In fact, you can even go outside the bank and see whether even the forex bureaus are giving better rates than this, because why should you lose your money? Yes. Now, for this one, we actually don't know what is going to happen, because, but as I look at the market, I see a situation where we have something that we call the stability at 140, 145, or 143. So if you have these, maybe if you want to do something with your money, you can sell. But if you don't have anything that you want to do with your money, you can keep. Because for me, the question that we need to ask ourselves as Kenyans is, why is it that we have had the fluctuation? Is it because the fundamentals of the country has changed, meaning that we have increased our exports, we have actually increased our remittances, we have reduced our imports in such a way that we have a stability in the market, or what is actually pushing this dollar to the fluctuation that we are seeing? Most likely it is because of some of those loans that we have, the dollar-denominated loans that we have gotten, and also the perception that we have in the market. So the question is, what can that actually lead to this dollar going down further to maybe 135, 130, or that, or below even that price? That price.
Right.
Remember, I have said that the reason as to why the Kenyan shillings depreciated towards the dollar, one, was because of what has been happening in the global market and the demand for the dollar.
Right.
So I think those are some of the questions that we need to ask.
So now, because we've established the value of $1,000 US. Right now, someone has $1,000 US, and the current state right now, it might be at that bit. So 140,000, about 500. So now let's get to understand if it continues. If, for example, if it was to gain even further and go to about, say, is it 120? Should we be as optimistic as 120?
The shilling gaining to 120?
Yes.
Okay. This guy is going to lose money, because you see now, $1,000 you multiply by 120 shillings, it's about 120,000, and that is why I was saying we lost ourselves, because we are importers. Because you see, we imported at a price where the dollar was very high. The Kenyan shillings value was very low at 166 shillings per dollar, and now it has gone down to 140. So it means anybody who had imported goods and services last week and goods last week and brought them to the country maybe this week, they have a challenge of selling those goods because of the competition, how they are going to compete with the people who are buying the same product today at a cheaper price of the dollar.
All right.
Yes.
So, Dr. I want to also invite Stella Sokei, Senior Research Associate. Stella, unaweza karibia hapa on our board so that you also help us understand how all this dollars are. Stella, karibu, and help us understand how all this might... Dr. you can have a seat. Right. Good morning. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
So you found us trying to get a hypothetical of someone who has $1,000 and right now the hold rates for different commercial banks, equity as well as family bank, there's Stanbic from where you are, and also how that particular rate might be. But then before that, also Dr. was telling us why are we seeing this whole gain. But then now for you can also tell us, in your view, why are we seeing the gain right now?
In my opinion, the whole rally of the dollar against most or major relevant currencies is mainly a sentiment play, given that there has been a lot happening and a lot of talking by politicians. There has been the CBK, we have seen rate hikes, there has been the buyback, there has been the IFB. So it all trickles down to sentiment and speculation for most people. Given that now when a holder of a dollar sees any slight movement in terms of the shilling strengthening against the dollar, they are afraid or they panic that the dollar might gain even more and they end up losing.
Because now that is where we are. Because so if it might be at 140 right now, and it might get all the way to, let's say, 120. So this person might lose to get 120,000.
Yeah.
But then now would you advise, because hypothetically they have 1,000, will they, let's say for example, sell half of that, alafu yingine wakae nayo, just be safe? Would you advise that? Or just actually sell it as it is, or go in 140, then they see how things are going to be. If it's going to lose, then they go with it.
Actually, 120 is a bit ambitious. The fundamentals do not support, because looking at currency movements, you have to look at the fundamentals, including current account, that is exports and imports, FDIs, what is supporting the strengthening of the shilling. So I'd advise people to invest in dollar funds. If you have the dollars, just invest in a dollar fund and get the gains.
Right.
But then you have to invest in the dollar fund has to have good returns for you to offset the losses once you convert your money into shillings within another period of time. But then we will have known whether the shilling strengthening will be sustained or it's just a phase we are in.
And earlier, the Secretary had mentioned that for him, his projection is about, it was 140? Tukienda sana 130. Uoni ikifika 130?
I don't see it going to 130. Between 140, 135 and 140 may be. But as she says, where are the fundamentals? That is the biggest question. So this is just speculation that we are doing.
Yeah.
So you agree it might stick to 135 to 140?
135, 150.
135,
150.
So for how long though? Because I mean now that would be another fundamental question one would ask. For how long should I, or rather this uncertainty might be seen? For how long maybe?
At the moment it's very difficult for us to tell, considering the kind of noise. There's too much noise. So the strengthening is getting support from speculation and sentiment as opposed to fundamentals. So it's very difficult to gauge for how long, when, and where the equilibrium is. But yeah, considering every other factor, including the assertion by the central bank governor that the shilling has overshot its depreciation, That's where I'm between 135 to 150.
Okay, to 150.
Yeah.
Right. So so that is as it is. Someone having 1,000 USD and getting 140,000. So now let's get to understand for the common mwananchi, to boda pale mama mboga, and they have maybe let's say about maybe 50,000 Kenyan shillings now, and they're saying, okay, so the shilling is gaining.
You need me to write?
Yes.
Okay. So 50.
So yeah, so 50,000 Kenyan shillings. Will you advise them now? Would you advise someone right now to actually buy
the dollar?
Yeah.
I will.
How will that play along?
Well, so you have 50,000 and a dollar goes for, say, 140. So this is one US dollar equals to 140. So you have now the 50,000 shillings. So how will that be? You 50,000 over 140. So you have...
You're the actual scientist between the two of us. So
over 140 and you get your number of dollars. Should be something around, mathematicians.
Let me just calculate for her.
Yeah.
As you talk.
Yes, so whatever the number here, X, is the number of dollars that. But where a common mwananchi is buying dollars.
Will they advise, because they'll be right now they're saying it's gaining.
Yeah.
Will you advise them to?
Like there are very many other investments that do not involve exchange rate risks, given that you're in Kenya and you're not using the money elsewhere. So there are so many other avenues you can put your money in: money market funds, treasury bills, treasury bonds, and they have very good rates where you won't involve the risk of foreign exchange.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Lecturer?
It's about 358. And I think even me, I would tell them, instead of going for these ones, let's go for the equity fund. You get your interest rate daily. Yeah. I think these people calculate it daily. And you can actually get your money within 2 days. Is it 2 days?
Yes, money market funds, the withdrawals are very effective. So I'm wondering why you as a common mwananchi would go for forex trading instead of just going for less risky investments. And
so all right, in the future, might it, as much as it might seem riskier, might it come in handy?
The whole thing is stability. If a currency is stable against other currencies, it makes more sense, or it has better benefits than a volatile currency. Because now, you see, I think I found you guys talking about imports. Like, for example, someone who imported, let's say, goods, manufacturing or input materials, or even, let's say, a car, you imported at 160. Then 3 days later, the dollar is trading against the shilling at 140. So with your goods already, you've already made losses. You've not even sold the goods. So these are the bit of unpredictability, which may lead to more losses for importers. So this phenomenon of the shilling appreciating against the dollar directly affects importers and exporters in a very significant way, before even we come to the common mwananchi.
Right. Yeah. Take a look at a couple of comments here, and someone asks, how does the government calculate the rates of the dollar versus the shilling?
Or they use actual figures from banks. They only use banks, then they weight it. So this means I go to a bank with 100, let's say 100 million US dollars, because CBK advises that if you have a huge amount of dollars that you want to convert, just go to a bank, you'll get a better rate. So I go there with my $100 million. Let me write.
Okay.
I go with my 100 million USD. So they give me at a rate of, say, 140. So they will weight this 140 with the 100 million. Someone else will go with, say, 200 million. And then they exchange it at, say, 1 should be lower because the amount is, so they weight the figures based on the volumes. That's why you will see, for example, the rate at which bureaus have is maybe a bit higher than what CBK has because they weight the figure. It depends on the amount of or the volume of dollars traded or exchanged. Yeah.
Right. But then I'm curious, so does this, the gain in the Kenyan shilling, does it affect our East African brothers and sisters?
Yes, it's affecting because even the shilling is also gaining against the Ugandan shilling and Tanzanian shillings. Actually, last week, a week-on-week change, the shilling had gained the greatest against the Ugandan shilling at around 10.8%. So that's a weekly gain, things we've not seen in recent memory. So that's why there's too much noise around it. And the more we make noise, the more we tell people, the more the shilling will continue strengthening against the dollar because of sentiment. Yeah.
Interesting. So, because like earlier on, we were talking about and trying to understand why people really hoard dollars and all that. Does this also come in play because when they knew there was a free fall, many would hoard, but right now the gain in it, what kind of impact now does that bring?
The panic selling only adds to the supply because you look at it as demand and supply, but many economists are saying that it's not, the shilling is defying basic economics of demand and supply. But then you look at it that way because where we stand, there was a Eurobond buyback, which instilled confidence in the market. Then there was an IFB in the market at that particular time. And the central bank governor told us that there was so much interest from foreigners. So we are talking of dollars coming in terms of people trying to buy the bond. We have people selling in panic because they are afraid of losses or they don't want to make losses. So the panic only increases the supply, hence pushing the shilling far higher against the dollar.
Right.
Yeah.
Terry, for now Ugandan and Tanzanian brothers, if the shilling is gaining, when you're trading now between Kenya and Uganda and Kenya and Tanzania, how does that affect them?
You see, what was happening before is that actually people are going to buy goods in Tanzania and Uganda because our shilling was deteriorating in value. But when it gains, then it means that the exporters, the people who are importing goods from there, they're actually getting better prices for their goods from there. Now the challenge are the exporters because when the shilling gains, then our exports also value goes down. Like now, if you listen to the tea farmers, the last few months, they were very happy because they were making a lot of money in tea. I remember one person telling me, there's a time a kilo of tea went for 547 shillings in Mombasa, in the Mombasa market, auction. Why? Because the dollar was high. And that is why we keep saying, if we want to do any favor to the Kenyan shilling, we must be an exporting country. Today, if you look at our balance of trade, I think in 2022, the last time I looked at it, it was about 900 billion exports and 2.5 trillion import. Now, when you have such a situation, that is why we are saying there are no fundamentals for that currency actually going down, because if you look at our imports and exports, we still have a very big variation unless we solve the problem of exports in this country. We're always going to have a problem of dollars in the country.
Right.
Yes.
And I'll talk about imports. I'd like you to now also, for the scenario of traders, even around the borders, around the Malaba, and they're trading between Kenya and the Ugandan brothers and sisters, and also in Tanzania. Just to understand mathematically how that plays along. Help us understand different scenarios, the different kinds of tools of trade they're applying, and how that plays along as well.
As I've said, it was easier. It was actually cheaper to import from Uganda than from Kenya, because it was expensive. Actually, the dollar was very high. The price of the dollar, the exchange rate was very high. That is why remember, you people showed us in the news people going to the border buying goods and services from there, or goods from there, basically because of that currency. So when now their currency is being eaten, I actually like talking about eating into the currency by our currency, then it means that we are actually getting our value in the international market. Because you remember our brothers had even started talking ill about our country in business, basically because our currency is depreciating in value. And that is how you lose even as a country, especially when it comes even to the ego in business, because ego plays a very important role in business. As she is saying, that confidence alone, the perception people have about your currency, is very important for trade, even for the investors.
Right.
Yes.
Karibu now to understand how that mathematics in the ESC works. Apart from, can now have a seat. Okay. So for Kenya, Uganda, as well as Tanzania, so how the whole trade is, as you're explaining now.
So you see what happens in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. Mm-hmm. You find that the Kenyan shilling is usually more stable, or more. It has a higher value than those two currencies. So you find that, I don't know how much one Kenyan shilling was exchanging to the Ugandan shilling. Was it 32?
No, 24.
24.
Let me confirm.
Yeah, that is Uganda. The other one was Tanzania. One Kenya shilling was exchanging to about 30 or what?
No, it's lower.
17.
It's lower. 17. Yeah, 17.
17. So what happens is that now, when the Kenyan shilling's value appreciates, you'll find that right now it has gone up to 27 or 28. And this one has also gone up to about 20. So it means that the Kenyan shillings has gained in value. Then it means that their goods now becomes more expensive than our goods here.
Oh, their goods in Tanzania.
Yes, and Uganda becomes more expensive than our goods here. And therefore, for them, they are actually going to get goods here rather than us getting the goods there, because they are cheaper. You can see it was exchanging at a cheaper rate. So it is easier for you to come and sell goods. It was easier for you to come and sell goods while you have gotten them from there than actually importing direct to Kenya. So that is why the traders were doing that. But now when the Kenya shilling gains in value, or the value gains like what is happening, it eats into their currency. And what
I'm being told for Uganda, I believe it's about 26. 6.6 right now. Yeah. Then I'm curious, even as we also have that. So that's 26.6. So hypothetically, you're buying onions from Tanzania.
Yes.
How much, for example, I don't know, in Lori, you do business, or whatever kind of business you do.
Yes, yes.
So if you're buying from Tanzania, getting it to Kenya, how will that be? For example, maybe for about 500,000 Kenya shillings worth of onions.
So 500,000 Kenya shillings worth of onions is equals to how many Tanzanian shillings? Because most of the onions come from Tanzania, actually.
Yeah.
So so 1 Kenya shillings is equals to about 17 TZ shillings. So 500,000, you can see, is 500,000. You multiply by 17. So that is what you get there. So you actually become a multi-millionaire when you go. But this is very little money in Kenya, denominated in Kenya. So maybe
8.7 million.
Yes. So if you convert this money back to Kenya shillings, you can see how little it is. So you can actually do a lot in that country. So this is what we call inflation, actually. So in most of these countries, I think Tanzania is because of the Ujamaa village. They still have never actually gotten to the capitalism market that we actually have in Kenya. So you can see the value of your money in Tanzania and therefore you can actually buy more products there. But when the shilling value goes down, then it means that your money becomes less when you go there. And therefore the goods and services that you wanted to buy there becomes less. And that's the same thing that happens to Uganda. Uganda is because of the civil war. I think they have never recovered fully. So that is why you see, maybe somebody would ask why we have these variations in the shillings. In most cases, it's because of what has been happening there before. And some of these things that you hear people talking about, like civil wars and all these things, they have a big repercussion to the currency. I remember I went to Sierra Leone and I was buying a plate of fish at 300,000 shillings, Kenya, 300,000 leones. They call them leones. But that was actually about 280 Kenya shillings because of the civil war and the Ebola problem that they had there. So their currency deteriorated because nobody wanted to go to invest in a country that had Ebola. Nobody wanted to go and invest in a country that had civil war. So all this is the reasons why you see some of these variations because of what has been happening in those countries there before. So they have never actually gotten to the point of shaking it fully. So when you buy goods right now, because the Kenya shilling is stronger, you buy more goods there with your Kenya shilling. So that is why you see when we were trading at 166, they would come actually here in Busia. They were actually coming to the other side of Busia. We were actually going to their country to buy goods because they were cheaper there. Yes, so that is what happens.
So again, you agree with him. So that means right now you'd prefer, even for our brothers who are in around Malaba, Huko, around your border, Kenya, TZ, there's an influx of actually going to trade there because of the...
Yes, I agree with him. But now on the international scope, strengthening shilling means that our imports also will be cheaper, but our exports will be less competitive because now the shilling is more expensive. I don't know whether it makes sense. Like when the shilling strengthens as it's doing now, our imports become cheaper. You remember the CBK governor also said, I'm quoting him a lot today, also said that half of the inflation that we were experiencing was because of currency depreciation. Because you see, on an international scope, most of our imports are financed in dollars. So when the shilling depreciates against the dollar, we import inflation. He's spoken about inflation, imported inflation. So when our goods the goods that we are importing becomes more expensive, it means we will sell them at higher rates or higher prices. So that contributes to inflation in the country. But now that the shilling is strengthening, it means that people who are exporting are getting less money. He's also spoken about tea, people who sell tea, because we sell tea also to international trading partners. So now those who are exporting are getting less money for what they have, but those who are importing are getting more goods. Yeah, if it makes sense, yeah.
Remember, you can always be part of this conversation on WhatsApp 0793-267-279. Talk to us on WhatsApp. Just text us will be, in case you have any questions or any feedback, you can tell us. Also, the call-in live is on your screen, 0795-045-864. The question of the day on our socials: do you think the shilling gain matters to you as a common mwananchi? Do you think, as much as we're talking, well, the shilling is gaining, but does it really matter to you? Still help us also debunk a couple of myths, because as this conversation has continued, everyone seems to be an expert in this. Kila mtu anasema pana iko hivi. First of all, he was talking about kind of civil wars and everything that also affect this. But right now we're seeing, let's say, the Russia-Ukraine war, the Hamas-Israel war. How much kind of impact can that have on even us, even as Kenya, when it comes to the gain and loss of the Kenya shilling?
Well, unprecedented occurrences like the Russian war, the COVID-19, those things that we cannot control, and they are called exogenous factors. Those ones contribute to inflation, because now things become expensive because of supply chain constraints, in that if, let's say, Ukraine or Russia exports most of the fuel to other countries, and now they have war, and you've heard of sanctions and all that, it means now the supply is cut. So with markets, it's mostly demand and supply. So when the supply is cut, we get to see a higher demand with less supply, leading to higher prices of goods, for example, fuel. So when inflation comes in, and I had mentioned about imported inflation, when inflation becomes a challenge, we get to see people like central banks increasing their rates. You've also heard so much on the Fed increasing rates, making our currency depreciate in value because investors are no longer investing in our country. They are taking their investments in USA where the rates are better and the economy is advanced, so the risks are not as much as what we have here in Kenya or in developing economies. So it all trickles down to how central banks react to such information. So when central banks say increase rates, we get to see constrained liquidity in the market, but then it helps with the dollar inflows. So just to answer your question, it's a balance. Like it's a balance of when this central bank increases their rates, we also increase our rates to balance things so that we have more inflows and more supply. So when the supply is less, for example, of dollars, we get to see a depreciation of the shilling. When the demand is higher, or when the supply is more, we get to see a strengthening of the shilling. And that's why him and I are saying that there are no fundamentals to support the strengthening of the shilling as at now.
Right.
Yeah.
David Ndishu on Facebook says the economic theories are very complicated. Dominic Omwega Charles, yes, since the price of commodities will stabilize. Someone says it matters a lot. Fedema, it matters a lot. Of course, might result into products prices lowering. And that is actually now what I wanted to pick your minds, both of you, from. I'll start with you, David. So how much, because again, when you always talk about the country's economy, at the very last bit, someone will ask you, fine, umenielezea yoyote, lakini bei ya sukari itapungua, bei ya unga itapungua, bei ya nini ingine na chumvi na kuanga sawa tu hapo.
Mafuta.
Mafuta. You know, those commodities, that's the household commodities. At the end of the day, will we be seeing a reduction in prices of these commodities?
So, Stanley, there's something...
And actually now, before you answer, hold that thought there. I want to cross over to Kisii. Hopefully, I don't know if he has other questions. But Dominic, habari asubuhi, watu wa Kisii wanaendelea aje? Hello, Dominic. Right, Dominic, tupigie tu tena. You can always call in live, 0795045864, tuambie maoni yako, au in case you have any questions, the experts are here to answer all those questions you have about the whole dollar and shilling. Now, to the reduction of commodity prices.
So, Stanley, I said that if you look at our
Can cross over to another page here. There you have it.
If you look at our trade, the way that our trade is, our export is about 900 billion. Our import is about 2.5 trillion every year. Now, what do we import? One is petroleum products. This is one of the products that actually hits into our dollars, especially the reserves. What else do we import? We actually even import sugar, the one that we are talking about. Most of the sugar we get is import. We import beans, the cereals from Uganda and all these other countries. So if you look at some of the things that I have actually mentioned here, there are things that play a critical role in our day-to-day life, like the petroleum product. Now, our shilling is strengthening, meaning that the import of the petroleum product is going down. The price, the value of the imports is going down for the product.
Right. Hold that thought there. Let's pick this call from Juja. Pato, habari asubuhi. Yes, kuna maoni ama maswali. Experts are here to answer any question that you might have ama feedback yenye uko nayo.
Mimi ni uchumi iko ya nchi. Serikali ndi pengine inaweza kusha jinsi kiendelea na uchumi. Sahi
Sijui kama hiyo I think that call all right. Sema maneno ya uchumi yeye kidogo lakini anaomba serikali iendelee kusaidia. All right?
So I was talking about the petroleum product. The dollar, the Kenyan shillings has strengthened. The value of the dollar has gone down to 140. And it was at 160, meaning that we were buying our petroleum products at 160 now. Exchange rate was at 160, now it is 140. So it means that the value of the petrol is going to go down. The price of the value of the petroleum products is going to go down. And this one is going to multiply. It will have a multiplier effect. In economics, we call it multiplier effect, or to cascade to the common mwananchi, because now the price of the petrol pump price is going to also go down because the imports are cheaper. And because of that, then we see the transportation of goods and services, the transportation by matatu also going down. So it cascades to the common mwananchi. So when the dollar is up there, it is a big charity to the common mwananchi. Look at the sugar. The same thing applies. You import it at 160 shillings. It is very expensive, and therefore maybe a kilo will go to 200 shillings, because these people has to factor all that price of the import. Now at 140, the price goes to 180 or 160. So who benefits? The common mwananchi. So
and then I now speak about the common mwananchi. Yes. Twende Eldoret. Habari ya asubuhi, asante sana for calling us this morning. Hello, habari ya asubuhi. Huyo pia amekata simu. Kuna always call in live. Ukitupigia simu zima ama mute TV. Then you throw in those questions, tuambie unatupigia wapi, and your feedback, what your feedback is.
So what Kenyans should actually understand is that in an importing economy like Kenya, it is very important for us to have a stable currency, and a stable currency that we can actually be able to know what is happening, because whatever we actually buy, we buy it plus the imported prices. And that is why she has talked about what we call imported inflation. In fact, I keep telling people, in Africa, in Kenya, we are only affected mostly by two types of inflation. Imported inflation and drought-related inflation. Because you see, our agriculture is rain-fed. Yeah. Now, this imported inflation is what we are talking about. And that is why you see that our prices of commodities have actually been going up. Now, let us look at what happens to their income. Now, when the prices of the commodity increases like we were talking about, it means that 1,000 shillings last year, when the exchange rate was at 118 in 2022, the imported goods were cheaper, and therefore 1,000 shillings could have bought more goods than 1,000 shillings today, and that is what we call inflation.
Right.
Yes.
But now, because you had also mentioned how it trickles down, let's pick this call from Mombasa first. Habari asubuhi, watu wa Mombasa muendeleaje? Alright, huyo ni kama amehepa. Unaweza tupigie simu tena utuambie, utuuliza maswali and all those questions. Daktari, you can have a seat even as I have also Stella. Now also breaking it down, because this is even as I go through some of these comments, this is just but a few of what people really want. Ndio kitu watu wanauliza, hii mafuta itaenda chini lini? We've seen the whole trend since last week of the shilling gaining, but people are wondering, when will they walk into the supermarket or the stores and actually see, oh, I was buying, let's say, maize flour at 220, for example, right now it's about 100 and something because of the dollar. How, when should we be seeing all this coming into play? I think tunaweza tuke hapo. Yes.
For one, it depends on how long the shilling will maintain the strength or the rally against the dollar. And number two, it takes time for things to transmit in the economy. So for example, say the fuel that we are using right now was imported, say 2 months ago. Fuel that we will be using maybe next month will have been imported, say 1 month ago. So 1 month ago, the shilling was not rallying against the dollar. 2 months ago, the shilling was not rallying against the dollar. So if Kenyans expect to see that in fuel this month or next month, it won't be possible, and they'll be disappointed.
Yeah.
And it's not the fault. Let me not say that because I'll be told I'm pro-government. It will not be the government's fault. Me here, I'm for facts. Number two, the major issue that has been concerning, particularly for me and most Kenyans, I believe, is the high cost of electricity. So KPLC came up and said the cost of electricity is high because we are factoring in the depreciation of the Kenyan shilling because of maybe the loans that they are servicing or they have and have not. So we expect to see lower prices of electricity if at all the shilling will maintain or sustain the rally against the dollar. But if this is just a phase, then we won't see that and we won't feel it in the economy. And it's very sad to see people gauge the performance of an economy in a week. It's very, I don't know what to call it, but it's not reasonable to gauge the performance of an economy in a week, even a month. We can do a quarter maybe, because even that's why GDP figures come out in quarters. Like you can't do a whole economy in 1 month, the performance. So yes, I agree with a bit on inflation and imported inflation. So if the dollar sustains its rally, and at one particular time becomes stable. So
hypothetically, the next, because you're saying, so it sustains for a longer period right now. So hypothetically, the next, let's say 3 months from now, so around July, how should the food prices be looking like? Because I'm pretty sure that is when our Kenyans would like to see hypothetically inafaa ikuaje. So even as you also have that for us, tusikie Gidi kutoka Murang'a. Gideon, habari asubuhi from Murang'a. Watu wa Murang'a wanasema aje, and asante sana for calling us this morning.
Watu wa Murang'a wako salama.
Uko na swali au endelea?
My question was, do our guests think that tuko right as a country venye tunaelekea? Are we good? Ama tuko kwa mkondo mbaya?
Yes.
The other question is, okay, there is this form ya government unapata at this time mafuta sijui iko at 2, inaongeza 2 shillings. Sijui wanarudi tena wana down at 5 shillings. Hiyo kukua consistent. Do we think tutakuwa consistent kwa pande ya these products, these household products? Sasa kama ni sukari ikimaintain at 160, are we sure that tutaishi hapo 160 ama ni kesho next month tuta deteriorate kabisa? Thank you.
Gidi, swali ya kwanza ilikuwa if we are right ama
if we are going to the right direction as a country.
Okay. Asante sana Gidi. Wacha sasa the experts wakuambia if we are actually going in the right direction or tunayumba. But then so we've noted that question, and also hiyo ingine ya mafuta ya petroli na kuongeza na 1 bob leo, kesho 2 bob. We'll hold that thought. So we were trying to debunk. So after hypothetically in the next 3 months,
I'll go with the line of Daktari on fuel.
Okay.
Because fuel is a major import and it affects many other sectors in the economy.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at an IPRA report, press release for Feb. So I'm seeing that we are looking from, let's say, from September last year.
Okay. September
2023, the dollar rate that was used to import fuel was 153.25. That is SEPT. Then 155.64 October. Then we have 157.52. Then 158.81, and then 164.42. This is the last time we imported.
So September, October, November, December, January, okay.
And this is Jan 2024. So if at all, for this fuel prices, the government talked of, diesel has been cross-subsidized by petrol. So meaning that the petrol prices were not adjusted in any way, then the profits that come from petrol will be used to subsidize diesel. Then kerosene was fully subsidized by the government. That's why prices declined by 1 shilling. So, for example, I'm assuming, let's say we imported this fuel. I'm not sure it's speculation. We imported the fuel that we are using at this rate. And it declined by 1 shilling. Then the next month in January, we imported at 164. So, for example, this is the pricing they will use to price the March fuel prices. So, if we see a decline of 1 shilling, we have to understand. Because when we even if the currency, the Kenyan shilling will have strengthened against the dollar, because it's important to understand that we did not import that fuel at 140. But if it maintains, and let's say, speculation, we import at 140.05 in Feb, this Feb that we are in, then this pricing will be used, say, in April fuel prices.
Okay.
We expect to see a higher decline in the fuel prices.
Right.
Then I cannot speculate or say at what number, whether it will be below 200, but we expect to see it.
Right. We'll be rubbing off that part to see also how, so that's fuel and other products. But let's go to Felix from Eldoret. Eldoret, ikoaje Felix?
Eldoret kuko poa.
Uko na swali au maoni?
Sina swali, niko na comment tu.
Okay, tuambie.
Just want to comment about everything that is going on. Ningependa sana kupongeza Dr. Kabata. I'm always smiling when I'm seeing him. Spitting wisdom around the fundamentals. Yes. That was my lecturer.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Alikupatia
sawa.
Alikupatia super ama aliku
I got everything A kwa subject zake. Yes.
Asante sana Felix. Daktari, you're out here touching lives, Daktari.
You know that is our life as lecturers and teachers. And we're actually very happy when we hear our students, they're also following, especially following, and they actually take part in what is happening in the country. Because I think one of the biggest challenges that we have had is a very, very, very ignorant society. And we are so happy, and she can even allude to that, when we see everybody becomes an expert of all these things, because that is how a country learns. And when you have an illiterate country, you actually go far because they even know how to invest, what they can be able to do, and all that. So I actually wanted to also answer what the other guy had asked, whether things are becoming better. And I think I can say that, as we've been saying here, the biggest challenge that we have had in this country is debt. And actually even the dollar is also affecting our debt, because you see, the reason as to why our debt has accumulated to 311 billion for the Eurobond is because of the depreciation of the Kenyan shilling. Because when Kenyan shilling depreciates with 1% or with 1 shilling, the value, actually the increase in the debt is about 45 billion Kenyan shillings. So we also have a situation where now our debt has shilling to bid because of the appreciation of the Kenyan shillings. And we would hope that it would appreciate further, such that we can even wipe out the whole debt if it is possible.
So even as you have that off, do you agree? And what are your sentiments? Do you think with the right direction, Stella?
I'll hold my position on, we can't gauge in a week the performance of the economy. And if the fundamentals don't support, you can't stand and say, I see the shilling appreciating even further. I will not use that personally as an analyst. I will go with facts, I will go with fundamentals. The fundamentals, as of now, don't support, because looking at the fundamentals, I'll look at what is our supply of dollar, where does our supply of dollars come from? Comes from external financing, comes from exports, comes from FDIs and diaspora remittances. For one, diaspora remittances hit a record high in January. That's one positive. We are expecting more external debt from World Bank, IMF, and other syndicated financiers. So looking at the short term, I can see supply, but not supply from exports or foreign direct investments. It's supply from external financing mostly. So it's still debt. We are still adding into our debt burden.
So that means whatever World Bank and the whole Eurobond, it really factors on how even the strengthening of the shilling comes into play.
But now in the Eurobond, that was like a swap. It's like Fuliza. Like you send money, when money comes, Safaricom takes. So the buyback was, we are buying back the 2024 Eurobond. But for us to buy back, we have to issue a new Eurobond, so that the money that we will get from this new Eurobond, we pay this June 2024 Eurobond. So they took 1.5 billion from the new Eurobond, and then they took this 1.5 and paid. So ilipitia tu kwa account. The settlement, I think, is around 21st of this month, so ni tomorrow.
Tomorrow, actually,
yeah.
Yes. I hope that has been meelewa hiyo. Right, now let's get into something. We'll take a look at how fuel prices might really be. So again, to also answer him, because this is as of this month.
Yeah.
So again, hypothetically, if it continues until, if you're having maybe at 135 all the way to July, are we set to see the fuel prices reduce?
We are. If fundamentals is anything to go by, if the dollar continues depreciating against the shilling, we are poised to see a reduction in fuel prices.
Right. Tushike simu ya pale Mlolongo. Habari ya asubuhi Alvin. Usijui na maoni au maswali?
Niko na swali. And my question is about
Endelea.
Swali yangu ni kwamba the effects of the dollar against Kenyan shilling, does it have a direct effect to our neighbors like the Ugandan shillings and the Tanzanian shillings? That's my question.
Okay. Tulikuwa tunazungumzia hiyo earlier on, but then they will also touch on it kidogo ndio pia kujulisha.
Okay.
Asante sana. Salimia watu Mlolongo.
Okay.
Naomba endelee kutuwatch hapa. He's asking something that we were touching on earlier, but then Kabatu unaweza mpatia a brief on.
So I think that when our Kenyan shilling appreciates, as we said, I'll use the terminology, it eats into their currency, and therefore it becomes more stronger than their currency. Right now, I think the Kenyan shillings, before it was exchanging to 24 Ugandan shillings, and now it is about 26. You can see now the Kenyan shillings has actually gained. It is actually more stable than it was there before. The same thing applies to the Tanzanian shilling, 17. I think now it is at 17. It had actually gone to about 16 or 15. So you can see our shilling is appreciating. But as she says, we actually cannot be able to gauge all that within a week. And therefore, we need to look at what is going to happen in a few months. And also pray that the fundamentals can go right. Because without the fundamentals, the currency will always shame us. Yes.
Someone else is asking, should I go and sell my dollars right now? Would you advise them to?
Panic selling. I'll just say whatever I said earlier. Yeah. Just invest in a dollar fund. Put your dollars in a fund.
So let
them get returns. Yeah.
So say wakwe nazo.
Because if you're selling at a loss, why? Markets will settle. You see, markets overreact to news, and kwanza if the news is propelled, markets will overreact. But at the end of the day, the dust will settle, and we will get to see where the shilling against the dollar stands.
Right.
Yeah.
To my hope you've been answered there. So we want to take a look at different food prices. So take a look at, let's say for example, a 2 kg sugar goes for about 400 bob. 2 kg rice is about 469. Nini ingine inakuwa muhimu sana. Sahi tuweke bei ya mkate. Mkate let's say ni 65. Hizi ni zile muhimu mtu atakuwa nazo kwa nyumba. Mafuta, how much is oil? Cooking oil?
It's about a kg.
One liter.
The liter?
1 liter.
Should be around 365
Yes.
thereabout.
Okay. So that's so this is as before the whole shilling, started, gaining. If we're using, this hypothetical, so right now it's at 140 February. If it continues to about all the way to July, the same, how much will it? How will these food prices, vary? But then hold that thought there. Tusikie from Samuel kutoka Nyeri. Samuel kutoka Nyeri, habari asubuhi.
Mzuri sana, mimi naitwa Meja Samuel kutoka Debunking wilaya ya Nyeri.
Tuulize swali.
Swali yangu nilikuwa nataka kuuliza. Tuliona dola inashuka, president hata akisema wale wamefisha watoe kwa sababu itashuka. Mbona hakuna kitu inaanguka, hata mafuta, hata petroli, hata ile tunatoa hiyo yote, hakuna kitu wana percentage inaanguka, kitu tunaona bado mambo bila tu ilikuwa. Kwa sababu kuna dola inashuka, kunafaa kuonyeshana mafuta inashuka. Sasa kama inakuja hata sasa kitabu na nyama kitu. Hiyo ni nini inaendelea hapo, tuulizie kwa sababu economy ni hapo.
So asante Samuel. So before upige ndio tulikuwa tunataka kuzungumzia hiyo, kuangalia ni nini na hizo food prices, and tayari washaanza kuuliza hii maneno. Hii bei ya mafuta mnasema dola inapungua. Mimi sioni kipungua kwa supermarket. Talk to us now on this. So hypothetically all the way to July there, if it's back evil.
Yeah, I can't point out the direct prices because this.
But a rough figure of how things might look like.
A rough things. I'll give a blanket answer.
Okay.
We expect a decline, but not now, not in the next 1-2 months. Maybe 3 months.
Maybe
3-4 months. And I'm noting that one mistake we are doing is assuming that every other price depends on the dollar rate. Our country grapples with taxes, which are fine because we are supposed to build a nation using our taxes. There is electricity prices. Like there's too much in the basket to consider. And probably doing a correlation between, say, the increase in prices of sugar and the increase, the depreciation or strengthening of the shilling, probably the correlation is just small, maybe between 0 and 0 point something. So I'd love for us to understand that many other factors come into play. And you remember there's a time that sugar prices really appreciated. I can't remember well what the issue was. And we fike 400. Same thing with oil. Oil, we import something to, what is it? Is it palm oil or sunflower? Something like that. We import something with that. So in any case, rice we import a lot from Pakistan. So I understand why you have it in your basket of considering the prices of goods that will go down. But my blanket answer would be that the prices should go down. Should go down, not so much because of the other factors that we've spoken about, like we had VAT increase on fuel from 8 to 16%. It has to still culminate into the economy, into the prices of products and all that.
Right.
Yeah.
Help me with the pen as we take this next caller. Daktari unaweza karibia hapa. Shedrack kutoka Athi River. Habari asubuhi?
Salama sana.
Uko na swali ama maoni unataka kutupatia?
Ni swali.
Tuulize.
Nauliza. Naibu wa rais alikuwa anasikika akisema wa Kenya wenye wako na dollars wakuje wauze ndio wasienda hasara. Sasa swali yangu ni wakati sasa wa Kenya watakuwa wanauza hizo dola. Is the country getting rid of the dollars, or is the country now getting dollars?
Asante sana. Ni hiyo peke yake ama kuna ingine?
Ni hiyo tu.
Asante sana, utajibiwa hapa tu sahihi. Stella, would you like to take it up?
Repeat kindly.
So he talks about as the deputy president was advising people to go and sell the dollars. So now he's wondering, is the country gaining?
Country gaining what?
Is the country gaining and also, I think, or, getting rid of the dollars? Something like that.
It's not possible to get rid of a currency like the US dollar, given that it's a benchmark currency and it's recognized everywhere else, and it's supposed to be used to import and to do everything else like payment of debt that is dollar denominated. So getting rid of a currency, no, I don't think so. And again, politicians will always drive their narrative in a different way. They want us to see they're working, and maybe they are working, so they will drive their narrative the way they want it to go. Yeah.
Right. So, Richard, even as you also maybe answer what he was talking about, there's something that she was talking about that I also want to build on. Why the dollar? Can we trade against any other? Why are we always, on the dollar? Really, and also taking a look at even other currencies that are there really.
Now, okay, for that question, you see, one of the challenges with our country is what I talked about. We actually export very little things, and therefore we have a very small reserve for dollars. Tunakuwa na reserve kidogo sana kwa dola. Wacha niongee Kiswahili ili yashike.
Yes.
Reserve kidogo sana kwa dola. Kumbuka dola si kama Kenya shillings, mtaenda hapa Dar room, print, mkuje mweke kwa market, lazima you must earn it. Kwa hivyo ile wakati watu wameweka dola ni kumaanisha they are not circulating in the economy. Kwa hivyo reserve iko chini, na haiko chini kwa sababu eti hakuna pesa, ni kwa sababu people are speculating with it. So what the political class is trying to do is to increase the reserve of dollars, so that when you have higher reserve of dollars, it means that the central bank has high supply of dollars. Then they can actually be able to play with the demand and supply of dollars in the country. Kwa hivyo ile wakiambia watu watoe, wanaambia watu leteni dollars ili reserve zetu za dollars zikuwe mingi, tukuwe na supply mingi ya dola. Kwa hivyo tukiwa na supply mingi ya dola, tukitaka kununua mafuta, petroleum products, we actually don't have a problem of the demand of the dollars, and therefore shilingi yetu haita affectiwa sana. So that is what they have been doing. But as she says, politicians need like fantasizing everything, because I even wonder who are these Kenyans who are holding dollars.
But then now the big question here comes in, why the dollar? If you take a look at other countries, I believe even for the Libyan currency, it is equal to the dollar. And the other currencies here, there's for the Chinas. Why the dollar really here?
Stanley, there's something that they have been actually talking about called de-dollarization. De-dollarization. And I think our president has, there's a time our president was very vocal about this de-dollarization of the global economy.
Yeah.
You see, the dollar, actually today, the central bank reserve, about 69% are in dollars. More than 90% of our trade is done in dollars. And therefore, it is very difficult for us to be able to run away from the dollar. And that is why they have been asking that question. Now, because of this, a very, very small challenge in a global economy is going to affect the demand for dollars. And if it affects the demand for dollars in our country, it eats into our currencies. And that is why they have been actually asking, why the dollar, the way you're actually asking right now, why can't we use another currency, or can't we build other currencies, even African currencies? Yeah. You see, the problem with African currency, ni eti ukitoka na Kenya shilling saa hii hapa uende nayo pahali pengine, hawezi itumia. So they have always been that talk that we should have one currency, so that we can actually be able to trade. And also try to do away with this dollar that is actually wreaking havoc in the global economy. So we have the China currency. We also have maybe the Russian currency. And also another question that we also need to ask ourselves: we are buying petrol from Russia. Why can't we use their currency against our currency rather than the dollar? But it is because most of the reserves that we have in the central bank globally are held in dollars, and therefore it is actually very difficult for us to de-dollarize the economy. But it's something that is going to take place slowly and slowly and slowly, because remember, we had rupee, we had the pound, but they are still today they are still lower in the usage than the dollar. So we're still going to get there, but it is not as easy as people think about.
Stella, is the dollarization possible even in the near future, according to you?
Near future, no. I don't even think in the long term, because there has to be a benchmark currency, and if we are depending on ourselves or the East African community, our neighbors, for everything that we are using, it's possible, but no, we depend on global trades and all that for the majority of our goods, or our imports, our goods, or our consumption.
For Kenya and maybe ESC, because even as the other caller was asking how this affects our brothers, it seems how we do and trade also affects them. So can there be an alternative of the dollar?
Not really, because we don't use the dollar alone. We have other currencies that we use. We have euro, because for example, if you look, for example, at our debt, external debt, around 68% is dollar denominated. The other 30% is denominated in pounds, euros. But you see, the majority of the debt is in dollars. The majority of our imports are paid or financed in dollars. So an alternative, we shall see in the future. Future, not near future.
All right.
Yeah.
I think there's something that they were also trying, but I don't know whether it worked or not. International barter trade. So the international barter trade was actually to try and circumvent the dollar in our buying the goods and services that we buy from outside, and also what we import. Because like now they were talking about tea in Pakistan and rice in Pakistan. Now what the question was, now we import rice from Pakistan and we export tea to Pakistan. So why can't this farmer, the rice farmer in Pakistan, be paid by the government in Pakistan for his rice, and our tea farmer in Kenya be paid in Kenyan shillings by the government, and then we have the barter trade. That is what we call the international barter trade. All that was because of trying to circumvent the dollar, go around the dollar and see whether we can be able to actually stabilize the currency. Because you see, when you have a currency that is not stable in an importing country, you cannot go anywhere. So that is one of the solutions that they had, some people were bringing in. And in fact, the government has even bought it. But I don't know how far it went, especially in that line.
Right.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure there are going to be more questions, and Kenyans really wondering this whole uncertain period, even for Kenyans as well as investors. And actually, speaking of investors, so I mean this was a whole scenario of a regular Kenyan akienda kufanya shopping, and even as they're asking, should we be seeing lowering of these food prices? But as you rightfully put it, wa relax kwanza, waone venye vitu zitaenda. But then for an investor, how does that play along? Before I get your last words, Nama, advice zenu kwa Kenya. Now for the kwa pictures, someone who is coming to invest and will basically invest, how should they be thinking right now with how things are right now?
As she said, you see, investment is about confidence and the perception that they have about the country, especially the stability of the currency, and also the ease of doing business. How is it for those investors to come in Kenya and do business? Now, when you have the dollar, the Kenyan shilling appreciating in value, we have actually said some of these investors will come to invest in maybe these food products. If their imports of whatever they are going to import is cheaper, then it becomes easier for them to come and do businesses here. If it is going to be expensive for them, and plus the taxes and all these other things, it becomes also very difficult for them. Now, the reasons why we have actually had a problem of taxes is because of the debt. The government is trying to collect as much money as possible from us people so they can be able to pay the debt. Right. And we have said one of the challenges that we have had with the debt is the currency. because anytime we have the dollar appreciating against the Kenya shilling, our debt increases with about 45 billion.
Right.
So an investor can also look at that and see that maybe now the government will relax the taxes because of that.
Right. Daktari, allow me to pick this call from Deno kutoka Eldoret. Watu Eldoret wanapiga simu. Deno, habari asubuhi?
Salama sana, habari yenu?
Sisi tuko salama hapa, tunazungumzia maneno ya dola na shilling, tuone venye iko sahihi. Uko na swali ama maoni?
Niko na swali tu.
Uliza.
Kwanza ndio nimefungulia tu TV nikaona hilo topic ni nzuri sana, ningependa kuchangia hivyo kwa kuuliza swali. Sasa nilikuwa napenda kuuliza hivi. The more the shilling appreciates and the dollar the shilling appreciates and the dollar depreciates. So ningependa kuuliza ni nini haswa kama taifa tunafaa kufanya zaidi kuhakikisha ya kwamba the value of our shilling inaendelea kupata value kwa market na hiyo value ya dollar ina depreciate. Alafu tena ningependa kuuliza the more the value of our shilling gains appreciate, does that affect the standards of our living?
Does that affect the standards of our living?
Yeah, in affect the standards of the living kwa sisi wananchi wa kawaida.
Asante sana Dino. Salima to Eldoret.
Sawa.
Two questions that we've been tackling even as we wrap up, but then najua even for your final thoughts mtaguzia hii. Kwanza akabatu umeshinda ukizungumzia hii kitu ya imports for the same, what the government should be doing. Should I start with you, Stella, on his questions, the kind of impact and what should we be doing to ensure hiyo kaiko 140 sahi ipungue kidogo, ikuwe hata 135, iende chini na chini.
So I would also like to pose a question to him. What is the objective? What is the objective of letting or making our currency strong? Anyways, just to answer his question, I'd love for us to sort or cure the disease rather than the symptoms. In that, we should work with regards to production, increase production of our country, so we will have enough to consume and enough to export. When we have enough to consume, our imports become lower. When our imports become lower, the need for dollars to pay for these imports reduces. Then we have enough exports, so we have lower imports, and this is long term because, as Daktari said, our imports are way higher than our exports are. That's why we have a current account deficit now every year now and then. So work on production, let's have enough to consume, which will consequently lead to lower importations and more for exports.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll pick that as your last thoughts. Dr. Even as you give us your final thoughts and advice pia, for people who are really trying to understand what is happening. People would also take you back all the way to time ya Kibaki when they're saying dollar silikuwa 100 bob and even less, because there's a time people would be like the dollar is 100 Kenya shillings. It was a hallmark of that. What lessons can we learn during those times right now?
So I actually think that it cannot. We need to see an inflation, an increase in a decrease in the value of the Kenya shillings, but not as deteriorating as the way it has been happening. Because you see, all this is affected by the international business, international factors. So that is why you see it cannot remain at the same position. But also, as we talk about that, we need to look at what she has said. What do we export in this country? Because we've talked about the inflow of dollars. The dollars are coming to the country through exports, through FDIs, through remittances, and through tourism. So if you people are not working to increase that or to increase that, then you'll never have high inflow of dollars, and you'll always be looking for dollars to go and buy your petroleum, because your dollars are less in the economy, because that is the challenge that we have.
Right.
So we need to think about those four things so that we can be able to also have a stable currency, because a stable currency is the most important thing.
Right.
Export.
Asante sana. David Kabata, an economist as well as a PhD, matters business management, entrepreneurship and innovation. Stella Suke, asante sana, also senior research associate, Standard Investment Bank. So natural science, I'm curious how natural scientist is out here. Mko kidogo sana by the way.
Yeah, but I particularly didn't follow that route. Yeah,
I'm curious why. A story for a whole other day. And asante sana also for calling in, for talking to us on our socials, on Facebook, 22047. This conversation continues online. Do you think the Kenyan shilling gain matters to you as a regular Kenyan? That is the end of Biashara Tuesday, the hashtag Biashara Tuesday. We get into County Diary. Fred?
All right, thank you so much, Stanley Nyaringita, and your panel of experts discussing the shilling against the dollar. Very crucial conversation to have around this time. Let's go straight to the County Diary, and we kick off this diary in Nakuru County, where reporter Josephine Chichi is talking to us about matters environment, especially with regard to the housing project. A very good morning to you, Chichi. Kindly bring us up to speed with what you're discussing from there.
Well, Fred, a very good morning to you. And it's true, the controversy surrounding the whole housing project has gone a notch higher now, with environmentalists led by the chair of the National Environment Civil Society Alliance of Kenya, Dominic Walubengo, saying that millions of tons of timber and sand that will be used in the housing project will also have adverse effects on the environment. But remember, this particular housing project has been, of course, suspended by the court and, of course, met condemnation from the public from across the country. But of course, the country has gone ahead, or rather the government has gone ahead to defend it, saying that it is a source of employment. But here, the environmentalists on this other end saying that, are rather wondering how sustainable it could be, more especially at the time when the country is grappling with the effects of climate change. But allow me to talk to activists, environmental activists in this particular county, to tell me what they think about this whole matter, whether they think what Walubengo said, that this particular housing project will have an adverse effect to the climate change, or rather to the environment. Bwana Tom from GAPLink. Yeah, I understand that you're an environmental activist. Tell me what you think about this whole matter. Your fellow environmentalist from Nairobi said that this whole housing project will have an adverse effect on the environment. How true is that?
Well, a number of things that come out true for me. One, we accept it was in the manifesto of both the teams, that's Zimio and also in UDA. But again, it's true that it's going to gain employment for people. But let's look at the aftermath of all that. Practically, if you go to the quarry, how much sand will we get? Practically, if you go to the place where they get the stones, how much stones will we get? How much of the gullies will be there? Do we have a plan of sustainability to be able to manage that? Is it going to be another place for the deathbed of children going to play in probably stagnant waters around? What will the waters that are stagnant be to the community? Well, most of the times when we talk as environmentalists, people look at the scientific nature of terms that we'll use. But now I'd want to break it down and bring people to the very, very low points. Again, if we look at employment, yes, we are going to employ these people. But after we are through with the buildings, what next? Where will these people go? So, and then the population, of course, it's increasing. What we had as last is not what. The other time, as environmentalists, there's a clip that went out on social media, and it was a practical thing. Yes, we are looking at now, but 40 years from now, as much as we are enhancing the food that we're getting through fertilizer and all this kind of stuff, but we're also having a lot of erosions that are taking place. So what we are remaining with more is sand than the topsoil. So that means the world will be losing about 40% of its food, whereas we have the growth of population and we are having the decline in terms of supply food chain. So where are we going to remain? So there's that, and for me, I agree, it's good that the population needs to be taken care of, but in a sustainable manner. If it was done in that, and of course, when experts share their view, then we've got public participation, we've got civic education, then in that kind of engagement, we can have a way forward of what will be the pros and cons. If that one is taken care of, then that be. But now, again, if we have the courts sharing and giving us this kind of direction to give us a better way, what does the politician say?
Do you think the president contradicts his idea of planting 15 billion trees by the end of 10 years?
Look at it from a different perspective. Those trees, yes, they will be planted. And we've planted. How many years have we been planting? And every time we say we've planted 15 million, we've planted this, we've planted this. At the end of the day, for them to grow in the forest, we need the other ones to compost. Do we have the ones that are composting, or we are clearing everything? So are we balancing?
Don't go far. Allow me to talk to another one. Tell me what you think. You're also an activist, environmental activist, but the whole housing project that of course was suspended by the court, do you really believe in it? And do you think it will have adverse effects on the environment?
Yes, I do believe that it will have a very adverse effect on the environment, basing on the fact that this housing project, the areas where these houses are being built, for instance, people are being relocated to other areas. We are also looking for material to build these houses, for instance, like timber. At the end of the day, we'll end up cutting very many trees to build these houses. And then we are planting 1 million trees maybe per year. Then at the end of the day, it will take more than the 10 years for these trees to mature. So we're going to have a very adverse effect on the climate pattern of this country. After 10 years, we are going to have a very shift turn on the climate pattern. At the end of the day, it's going to affect our planting and harvesting seasons.
What would you want the president to do now?
I'll want him to adhere to the court order. Number two, also come up with a plan of how to eradicate these effects that is going to come up with because of implementation of this project. Because some things like, for example, the houses are being built in urban areas. Like for instance, I live in Nakuru. Then I'm told my house is somewhere in Narok. At the end of the day, it becomes practically impossible for me to live in that house. So, and this is what is happening to very many Kenyans. So it would be a good idea if, for instance, where they can come up with, whereby all of us are involved in. So in case, instead of taxing us for this housing project without consulting, where do I want my house to be? So I think he will come up with a better plan if we are all on board in agreeable terms, and also we look at the effect, the long-term effect of this project, because we are leaving very many gullies, very many open field, whereby we are affecting our environment. So at the end of the day, the environment is going to affect our food basket.
Thank you so much for your time. Bwana Tom, briefly, tell me, what do you think the government should do currently, more especially pertaining this housing project, more especially if the court will lift the suspension?
I think adherence to law, adherence to our constitution, because everyone speaks about the Constitution 2010. But again, are we adhering to it? By adhering to it, there are principles that are derived from the same, which means we'll have public participation, there'll be involvement of the stakeholders, there'll be a better planning. It is not a rhetoric, whether it's political or non-political. What we need is things that are specific, things that can be able to give us a way forward. And sustainable, because what we are looking for is the sustainability part, and also to feed our community, to feed our society.
In case these housing projects will be lifted by, remember the court suspended it, in case it's lifted, do you think it should go through the strategic environment assessment?
Definitely yes, it has to. There's no choice, there's no two way around about it.
And do you think the president will do that?
Well, the president has got a very unique position. One, is the father of the nation. But then the question is, when the father errs, do we have to beat him? Of course, people will. And the second part is still the father of the nation. He's the one who's supposed to show us how to respect the Constitution. If he doesn't respect, then I will also not respect it.
The fact remains that it will have adverse effect on the environment.
Definitely, yes. Crystal clear.
Okay.
Thank you
So much. Therefore, Fred, those are activists, environmental activists from this particular county, of course, explaining what they feel about this whole matter, the controversy surrounding the housing project. And of course, they say it is very true, it will have adverse effect on the environment and more so on the community. But all they want is that if this particular project will be lifted, remember it was suspended by the court, and if it, by any case it will be lifted, then it will have to go through the strategic environment assessment to ascertain whether it has any probable impact on the environment and probably on to the community. That is all from Nakuru County. Over to you, Fred. This is Chichi Josephine.
Thank you so much, Chichi Josephine, all the way in Nakuru County. And as we continue with our county diary, we stay in Nakuru County, but this time around we head to Naivasha, where Willie Dennis Njiru is on standby. Today being the second day of the cabinet retreat ongoing at the Lake Naivasha Resort. Also, we do expect that Kalonzo Musyoka, the Wiper Party leader, will be in Naivasha. Willie Dennis, a very good morning to you. Bring us up to speed on what to expect both at the Lake Naivasha Resort and with that visit by the former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka.
Thank you very much, Fred Indimuli. It's indeed quite a sunny day here in Naivasha. As you can see, it is bright and sunny. Nonetheless, yesterday we had a bit of rain running through to the evening. As such, the president was here commencing his sitting with the cabinet secretaries, running all the way up to around 9:30 in the evening. Today, it is a similar occurrence here where the president is already locked inside that building behind me there, as you can see. And he has with it the cabinet secretaries and the PSs. And later at around 10 a.m. this morning, the Council of Governor Chair, that is Governor Waiguru, and the chair of various committees in the governorship are going to be doing their presentation to the elite team inside there. Among other issues that were emerging from what was discussed yesterday, as we heard in the news, was about the development of the various regions and how best of region can be improved to ensure that we maximize the resources that are available across the country. That well said, later on in the same premise, the Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka is also expected here to officiate function around here, and in it he will be giving his remarks address to the state of the economy and what is befalling the nation. Much about it, further details regarding that still remains undisclosed, but the Wiper leader is yet to arrive here in Naivasha, at this very place that is Lake Naivasha Resort. Nonetheless, speaking to the chair, she has indeed alluded to the fact that seemingly because we have the devolved functions and we have the CSs who have to work in tandem, so to ensure that they deliver to the public and the mwananchi, as the president alluded to that fact yesterday, it is indeed synonymous with the theme what the government has to deliver to the people come 2027. Just to pick from what the president mentioned yesterday, he said that you already have a marking scheme at your disposal as of this moment when he was making his remarks yesterday. And indeed he said to the MPs that if they are not careful, they are going to lose it. And if this does not come into place, then they'll have a challenge getting back to the same society to seek for votes, to seek for leadership from them. But the president is very determined to ensure that he consolidates all leadership together. That is why he's having the chairs of the committees of the governors' committees here to ensure that at least from all those departments, health and all the sectors, they do their presentations, at least then they can digest later. And this is going to be a thing that is going to run throughout the day. And some of the governors we spoke were to off-cuff. They said they are certain that this is going to run throughout the day. And up to the evening, then maybe they will be having a press release tomorrow after it is all said and done. We will be keeping tabs to ensure that we bring our viewers up to speed on what is happening around here in Naivasha. And that is it from me here. I take it back to you in our studios. Fred Indimuli.
Thank you so much, my colleague Willis Dennis Njiru, bringing us up to speed with what's happening at the Lake Naivasha resort, where the cabinet retreat is on its second day today and will continue for the rest of this week. And of course, we'll be getting more details from that end in our subsequent bulletins. But for now,
oh yes, real quick, I promised to take a look at your comments on our question. Do you think the shilling gaining matters to you? Wambua Ndeto says, yes, because we import many commodities in dollars, it will help prices lowering. Solly Michael, politically managed dollar. Hali Mal pledges they can now invest in the cheaper dollars and let CBK revalue the quote-unquote Bob coin. And ya mwisho Kuhora Kingori, only to a few business people. Sisi wengine tusubiri mkono wa Bwana ushuke juu yetu.
Actually, it does matter a lot, yeah. As one of your panelists said, yes, if you buy something this week and next week the shilling appreciates, you may have lost something, yeah, especially if you're an importer. But for exporters, the weaker the shilling, the stronger the dollar, because you're paid in dollars, it's better for you. So